Hello everyone and welcome to the Knowledge Pool, your source for everything regarding the rules of Magic the Gathering. Today we'll be going over the new legendary creatures from the set and collectors boosters exclusive from the new set Streets of New Capenna. There are 3 of them. Let's begin. Up first we have a mono white commander. It's Bennie, Bracks, Zoologist, 3 and a white for a 3-2 legendary creature elf druid. It has Convoke, and at the beginning of each end step, if you create the token this turn, you get to draw a card. So first things first, you can absolutely use the Convoke from the command zone, since it's an alternative casting cost of casting Bennie Bracks. And also commander tax applies normally to the Convoke cost. For example, if Bennie Bracks has already been cast once from the command zone and we try to cast it again, it costs 6 mana. And you can tap 6 creatures, for example, including at least a white creature in order to play it. Because remember, Convoke also can be used to pay for the colored symbol, so if you tap a white creature, that could be used to pay for the white part of the spell. Now, the other thing we need to know about this card is that the trigger that draws us a card at the beginning of each step is an intervening if trigger, and that means that the event that the trigger states has to be true at the moment the trigger would be put in the stack to be placed on the stack. So here we have to have created a token before the beginning of the end step. So for example, a card like Keeper of the Accord that creates the tokens on the end step doesn't work with Bennie Bracks because we have already get past the point that its ability could trigger. But a card like Smothering Tank works really well because it creates treasure tokens when an opponent draws a card, which would maybe be during the draw phase. Also Halo Fountain, the card from the new set, is really good in this deck because you have tap creatures to the Convoke and you'll be able to make a token each turn. Another good card is Haunted Label because it's triggered whenever a creature dies, and also effect that allow us to create tokens at speed are really good, like Brava, Steel Legion, which has an activated ability to make creatures, or Call the Copper Codes. Also, Luminous Cassation is another fun card here because you make big tokens and draw cards. And again, just be careful on the activation window for the trigger. If you have an activated ability that makes a token, just make it before they're going to their end phase. Up next is a mono black commander, which is Marie the Killing Quil. It's a 1 and 2 black for a 3-2 legendary creature vampire assassin. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, exile it with a hit counter on it. And the other ability is that assassins, mercenaries, and rogues you control have death touch, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to the player, you may remove a hit counter from a card the player owns in exile. If you do, draw a card and create 2 treasure tokens. So here, pretty simple, you try to jam in as many assassins, mercenaries and rogues as you can. Note, Marie here is also an assassin, so it has already death touch and disability. Again, here the first ability is not a replacement effect, it's a trigger, so the creature will absolutely go to the graveyard first and then it will be exiled. So if an opponent has a Ser Coronat, it will trigger twice from their Ser Coronat. Funny thing about this card, it actually enables another commander from another set, Etrata the Silencer, because they are the only 2 cards that both use hit counters, and Etrata just needs to hit someone, exile their creature, and then if they have 3 hit counters or cards they are in exile, you kill them. So with Marie here you can start killing creatures and they will have many cards in exile with hit counters on them, but note here you still need to hit them with the Etrata to exile a creature, and then they lose because that effect is titled on the trigger from the hit. So again, you have to do a lot of work, but it just makes the work a little bit easier. Also, a little bit of a non-bow here. The Wuthi Voidwalker might be a rogue, but because it has a replacement effect that whenever card opponents could go to the graveyard, you exile it instead. You never have the option to exile them with Marie, so these cards don't look good at all together. And the final commander that's exclusive to set boosters and collector's booster is Vazi Negotiator. It's a 2 enchant colors for a 3/3 legendary creature human advisor. It has haste, has an ability that says tap. Target opponent creates X treasure tokens, where X is the number of treasure tokens you create this turn. And a second triggered ability that reads: whenever an opponent casts a spell or activates an ability, if mana from a treasure was spent to cast it or activate it, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, then draw a card. Okay, so this card is a little bit weird, but it's pretty much, when you first think of it, like a political card, but you can actually do some interesting things with it. First things first, let's see if it has any weird rulings. So the activate ability counts on resolution how many treasures you have created this turn. So it's pretty simple. You count the treasure you created this turn, and the opponent you chose gets as many treasure tokens. Note the ability targets, so if the opponent has protection in some way or gets hexproof, the ability will do absolutely nothing. And the other opponents also know which opponent you're picking because the ability targets. And the triggered ability will trigger only once, even if the opponent spends more than one treasure in casting spell or activating an ability, because it just needs that spell or ability to have mana spent from a treasure source. And you pick a creature, you put a counter on it, and draw a card. Important here, if for some reason you cannot pick a creature, the ability doesn't even go on the stack. But you usually go because you will at least have Vazi in play. And also another important thing, this trigger is placed on the stack directly after the spell or ability is activated, so you will have to pick the target at that moment, and the opponents will know what are you targeting with the ability. Again, if the target is killed or responds because this ability has only one instance of the word target, then you don't get to draw a card. But here is the interesting thing you can do with this command. You can make essentially a giant deck that makes treasures and punishes opponents from sacrificing permanents or using artifacts. So Mayhem Devil is obviously amazing here because it counts when any player sacrifices a permanent. So you also get the bonus for sacrificing your treasures, but you also punish the opponent from sacrificing the treasure you gave them, because the advantage you give them is actually really important. You have to find a way to stabilize it. Another good card here is probably Marionette Master, because you're gonna make a lot of treasures, so you can drain the opponents fast. Reverie Riches is also fun because it at least gives you one treasure per turn, or at least a treasure when an opponent creature dies, so you can pair it well after a board wipe and make a lot of treasures, force an opponent to also make a lot of treasures. Burial Revel also absolutely amazing in this deck. Tokens hit the graveyard before they cease to exist due to state-based actions, so you get a draw per treasure sacrificed. Tireless Provisioner, also another good source of generating treasures for every land you play, so if you play fetch and you get to get 2 treasures essentially. Zorn is really interesting because again treasure deck, so you pump more treasures out. Disciple of the Vault also works kind of like Mayhem Devil. It's a little bit worse because it only counts artifacts and you have to choose target opponent, so you cannot hit creatures with it. And generally you want as many treasure production in your deck as possible. That means you can have a lot of mana, cast big spells. There are a lot of cards in Streets of New Capenna that benefit you of sacrificing treasures to make things. And you have to be very careful though how you circumvent it, because here is the problem with this deck. You can give the opponent treasure, so if you have a Punisher mechanic out, you absolutely get nothing out of it, so you have to find a way to force the opponent to sacrifice the treasure, like play board wipes like Bundle Blast that destroy a lot of treasures, or play cards that punishing artifacts. For example, a card like Ancient Runes punishes the opponents from having a lot of artifacts, so you essentially force them to somehow use them. It's a deck that needs a lot of right pieces to get working, but I think you can make a really fun deck out of this commander. And you can also obviously not use it for that and use it for political reasons, but I think this is your best approach to this card. And these were the 3 new commander cards from the exclusive set and collector boosters. Pretty interesting overall. Power level, I would say it's fine, it's not anything way too good. It's a little bit annoying that you have to specifically find them in collectors and set boosters, but there will be relatively a lot of open, so I don't expect the price to be that high. Hope you learned something today, hope you got some ideas for new commander decks or inclusions in some already commander decks you have. Thank you all very much for watching, see you in the next video.